Okay. All right. It's 7 and we're punctual. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Okay. I'm going to just make a note of everyone that's here. And
Oh, Liz, I do believe we have to call the name and then we say present.
okay, I will. Hang on. Bear with me. Okay. So I've got Rajani.
Vision.
All right. Jane Gates.
Present.
Thank you. Kate.
Present.
Myself, Liz Kesselman. Okay, we've got 4. Awesome. Why don't you guys take a look at the minutes from the last meeting?
Does everyone have those accessible? I can put them in the chat if not.
And then I can make a motion to approve them if you'd like.
Second.
Okay, ladies, today our primary topic is to talk about our grant reception and to hopefully make some decisions on it. So we can go out of order. We can start there. Or we can, it's up to you guys. Kate and Rajani, if you guys have an update, you're welcome to go first if you want, or we can talk about the reception, whatever you guys want to do.
Sure. Why don't we go ahead and go a little bit out of order? I do have like a few just updates on miscellaneous committee business that's taken place that might affect some of our thinking around the grant reception. So
Okay.
I'll go ahead and just run through that. This should not take more than 5 or 10 minutes. So Rajani and I did meet with Carla, who was extremely helpful. We went over the just general procedure for reimbursements now that we've made decisions on the grant distribution. So I think we have a clear picture of that. So Rajani and I are going to meet. Rajani, I did see your note and follow up. Thank you for that. But Rajani and I will meet, I think, in the next 2 weeks to start getting the ball rolling on the grant recipients that have already submitted. I think that one important topic that we discussed that I want to raise here, we don't need to vote on this, but just out for the purpose of transparency, is that a few grantees, not all, I think 1 or 2, did ask about advance funding, meaning the word direct reimbursement grant program. That's what the town of Southborough has authorized. And what that means is we typically will get the receipts from the grant recipient. We review, do a quick audit, make sure it's in line with the purpose of what their application stated. And then we put in the request to town and the town issues them a check. That's the process. Now, there are a few applicants that were interested in having an advance payment. And from my perspective, I personally feel that that is a totally reasonable request. A lot of these artists are doing this in their free time. This is not their full-time job. I see our council as like a catalyst for helping get these creative programs off the ground. But, there's also a sense that, we need to be equitable in terms of how we're distributing the funds. So we put the question, Rajani and I, to Carla just to see. She doesn't have a recollection of that being a practice of our committee in the past. So there were, I think, 2 or 3 requests I received on this topic. One of the applicants had stated that they had they had done this before. So, we just might not have the institutional recollection at this point of,
right.
So what we discussed with Carla was, as long as it's like a reasonable request, would this be possible for us to do from time to time? So like scenarios in which I could see this happening frequently are mostly, or well, really any program, but I could see it coming up more frequently with performing arts, where you might need to put down a small deposit for the venue, or things like that. And so Carla said, like, we don't want to be writing blank checks, but if there are reasonable requests that we get, that we can go ahead and handle that on a case by case basis. Um, so Rajani and I were kind of in agreement with that. We wanted to make sure that the committee was sort of aware that that's the practice. So we don't need to make a decision on it unless somebody feels totally opposed to that practice.
I'm not totally opposed, but I don't love the idea that it's not the town's preference and it's not the way it's been. Like, I totally understand the case by case, but I'm nervous about if we got into a situation, which if it's case by case, I guess we can discuss it at the time. But like, I would be nervous that what the sort of liability would be if that person or the group never ended up having the event. Like, how, that's all. I think it wouldn't be fair to other applicants, and it's like somewhat a little bit of like, it just gets into it. It's like manual. It gets into a gray area but
Yeah.
if it's case by case and we discuss it as a group, then we can cross that bridge, I guess, when we get there. So I'm fine. I just, it's like that sticky point where we're in between being a grant and serving in a grant administration function as like a conduit of the state, but at the same
Right.
time, we're a division of or we're a representative of the
Right.
town. So that's all. They like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
crossroads.
No,
Yeah.
I had a very similar sort of line of thinking, and where I came back to was like, okay, what is the purpose of this
Mm-hmm.
committee?
Right.
Is the action, like in practice, good stewardship of the funds and in line with that mission? And I can
Mm.
see, I guess what I'm saying is I can see scenarios in which it would be. Like I don't,
Yep. That's a
so
good example that you use. That's a great example.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for the recipients that have asked that question,
Yep.
how I have responded is, generally speaking, that is not our policy. However, if this is something that you feel is necessary or would like to explore, we can have a conversation about it. And so
That's
far, I
awesome.
haven't received any pushback saying, yes, I need, the money now or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, that's how we'll handle it. And then if it becomes something that's like really high volume, we can address it. But
Sounds good.
I think it's important to be transparent about that kind of thing.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I think
Um,
you guys.
Rajani, was there anything else from the meeting with Carla that stood out to you or that we should report on?
No, only this is a point. Only this is main
Yeah,
point, and everything is fine.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Um, so just a couple of other things that have come up on my end over the past month. So one is when we sent out the grant and the decisions, there were some artists that we had declined but had invited to come present to our meeting. And
Yep.
so I would like, and I don't know if I need to make a motion to do this or just suggest it. I think starting in March, if we could just add to our standing agenda artist presentation,
Mm-hmm.
and we can start inviting those folks. So we don't need to do like 10 in one meeting, but we can allocate 5 or 10 minutes to one artist group over the next couple of sessions and see how it goes, if
Sounds
everyone's
great.
comfortable with it.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice.
And then the other thing that's come up is that I am getting a number of requests from organizations that I would call sort of artist adjacent. So folks that, may be interested in a future grant, but are kind of starting to explore. Maybe it's a school teacher, these types of things where they want kind of more real-time feedback. So I have been offering phone calls here and there, but what I'd like to do just to make this a little bit more efficient would be to add an office hour on the front end or the back end of our monthly meeting. Maybe not even an hour, like a half an hour, and just see if people utilize that. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of like having to do these one-offs, just invite them to come. So if you all are comfortable with that, what I would do is I would just tack on a half an hour either to the beginning of our monthly meeting or the end. I'm inclined to do the end just because if things run over, I don't want it spilling into our committee time, but wanted some feedback from this group on that.
I think that sounds great. I think it's great to set that expectation. It sounds good to me. Do you guys agree? Do we need to make a motion I mean, like from a legal perspective, it's just a component of the recorded meeting, correct? It's just, I mean, technically it's an add-on, but it's part of the meeting, right? For open meeting law?
Yeah, I think it would be part of the meeting. And we can double check that. So maybe tonight what we can say is let's explore it and then add it on in March. Just we can verify if that's something.
Yeah, we could simplify it and just basically saying we're going to add a permanent agenda item to allow artists
like an office hour, basically.
Right, to present to the committee about their programs, like open, yeah, exactly, office hours. But so it's sort of a broad umbrella. You could come with a variety of. So, for example, in the December timeframe or November, or perhaps we get a lot of people that come with questions about the application, you know, and so we get it all then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds really good to me.
Okay. Just a couple of other things. I drafted a press release announcing the grant awards. I think I was hoping to get a little bit more information from our grant recipients. Candidly, I got very little back from folks on deadline. So I think it's just going to be too difficult to manage, having a comm strategy around pushing out their events this year. But I do think we can we have bandwidth to do a press release. So we have a quote from select board chairs that we're going to integrate into that. And then once we make a decision around the grant reception date, we'll fold that in. And I think we can drop the press release in March. And then see, the only other piece, so two other quick things. Well, really one other quick thing. We've received positive feedback so far on our budget submission to town. So I've gotten this feedback from a few different folks. So our budget request is in the town budget that's going to be put forward at town meeting in April. I'm planning on attending town meeting in case there are questions that come up relative to the budget request. So just to recap, it was a $4,000 budget request based on a draft budget put together that integrated sort of feedback from our community input survey. So it aligned some line items to specific comments that we got back from the community. So just so we're all clear here, $4,000 for us, it's a small line item relative to town. However, I think as taxpayers, we're probably all budget sensitive. So we need to be prepared to get feedback from other residents on that request. And, what I've said to the select board and others is, I totally agree. And if our committee gets a budget, we need to make sure that we're good stewards of the funds and that, these dollars are being put to work in the way that the town would like to see sort of cultural arts being supported. So, I think, the best case scenario would be that everyone's in agreement with that, it passes. And then, we utilize the funds in the way that was sort of indicated in our budget and in alignment with the community input survey. And then worst case scenario would be that not all $4,000 of it is awarded, get a smaller amount, in which case the prior scenario still holds. So, I think it's all positive, but, just to share my philosophy, I think that we need to do the best work with what we are given and in line with our community. So that's really the goal here. It's not to like increase our budget tenfold and, not do anything with it. So I want to make sure that, you know, residents are supportive of it, because otherwise it's not going to be meaningful for the community. So,
Makes sense to me.
so those were the updates that I had on my end. And then, you know, this agenda also stated update status on grant disbursement. So we did talk about our meeting with Carla, but then, you know, we can also just confirm, or Johnny and I did confirm that our grant has been received from the state. So we're ready to start issuing reimbursements.
Okay. Jane, you were going to give us more information on your thoughts about the content of our acceptance letter and its may or maybe not vagaries. Did you have a chance to circle back with your sister and get us more feedback that we could?
It's kind of,
Yeah.
I know that Kate spoke with my sister as well directly, I do believe, right?
I didn't speak with her. She and I did email.
Oh, it was emails, right?
Yeah.
And Barb kind of said, look, you know, it's, you know, she said she found it confusing. It wasn't very clear because they came in at different times, but,
Right.
and there was a much wider lag between when the state notified
Mhm.
and when the city actually notified, and she got it mixed up with Westborough actually thinking it was
Sure.
them responding. Also, it was difficult because the logo for Massachusetts was actually displayed on in the email from Southborough, and it
Right.
was just kind of not as clear as it could be. And the period of time in between was it went from the very end of December to I think the 9th of January. But she said, look, you know, if it's not a simple thing and they can't just, you know, make it clear, don't worry, I don't want to get involved. So.
Oh, no problem. No, that's actually really helpful. I'm going to write all that down because I think that's a great point. That Mass LLC logo, Mass Cultural Council, that gets slapped on a lot of things, and it's a little bit, it is absolutely confusing. I think that's a great point. That's such a tiny thing that we can tweak in the letter next year. Yeah. I think the MCC logo. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for. Well, I appreciate the perspective of it, of sort of like the other end of it, the end user, if you will.
Yeah, which is why I
communication.
wanted to share it, because it's something you wouldn't think of from this end.
Mm-mm.
But
Mm-mm.
again, it can be confusing because she's getting all in the same time period responses from different towns if she
Right.
does apply to different towns.
Right.
And logos are all sort of
Yeah.
intermixed, and she got mixed up as to what was what. She ended up having to, she said, oh, look, we got another amount, and told it to the band. And she said, oh, sorry, made a goof. It was a goof.
Yeah.
This one
Yeah.
actually was from Southborough again. It was a reiteration of the fact that we already got this amount from Southborough. So she wasn't sure whether she thought it was two separate grants.
I see.
So
Okay.
just clarifying.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. Yeah. I know it's good because, like I said, this could be such a minor tweak, and the letter could be a little stronger. So, okay. Okay. So let's see. I actually had a question for you guys. I thought of this the other day. Did anyone end up going for a tour of the new arts building? Did any of you guys end up doing? No, me neither.
Not yet.
No,
Okay.
I don't think Catherine followed up on that. She said she was going to, but I never heard back from her again.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. We reviewed minutes. We've got a great financial update. You guys are going to be busy starting to issue the reimbursements. I hope to be at town meeting as well. Okay, love the idea of adding a permanent agenda item for open forum, office hours. All right, I think the only other thing left here is we really want to discuss the grant reception. So you guys want to start with like when? You want to start there? I mean, anyone have any thoughts?
Yeah, let's go ahead and look. So my thought is we should focus on a Tuesday or Wednesday. I think we should look in May and June, probably the second half of May, probably first half of June.
Okay.
My thinking there is informed by just experience planning these types of things. I think you get a better turnout on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Then when you creep toward the end of the week, there are other types of events that start to fill calendars.
Yeah.
And then I think we should try and do it when the weather is nice. But we also want to be thoughtful about the different populations we serve. And
Yeah,
so
what do we want to do?
I
mean,
think
like, no, to be seriously, like, we can do whatever we want. Like last time, really, whatever we think will be well attended and appreciated. The last 2 years, we did evening events in February. So evening events, one at the townhouse and one at the library. It's going to pretty much like eliminate children, which I don't think is something we want to do because we have a lot of programming towards children and because we want to create, we really would like to include as many groups in this community as we can. So we've been nighttime. We don't have to be nighttime. And we can use a library. So we could be a weekend too, if we think that that would help. I don't know. It depends on what we're doing. Are we doing an activity? Are we doing a speaker? Like, what are we doing?
yeah, it's a good question, Liz, and maybe we should think about it in terms of objectives. So what are the objectives for this event?
Well, I think one of our primary objectives is to show appreciation and recognition for the folks that we have granted money to make, not only make like sort of encourage them and promote what they're doing, but also make sure that that sort of feel good gets out in the community at whole. Southborough starts to develop a reputation as a community that really prioritizes cultural and arts programming and wants it. We want more folks on our committee. We want more people advocating for it. We want more applications. We need the goodwill, right? We don't have a ton of it just because it's only been a couple of years that we've really reformed. So I think first and foremost, we want it to
Community
be
building.
something that the people that we have granted to that they come to and they want to come to.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it's like an excuse, if you will, for us to promote programming in the community and to bring people together. And so I like the idea of something during the daytime versus the evening because I would really like people with children to come. And like a lot of older folks, not that old, don't love driving and going out at night. Like I would like to sort of try to capture as many people as we can.
Those are great comments, and I think really help us sort of situate this within a different context, because I think, and I was falling into this trap as well, sometimes it's very easy when we've done something one way to fall into that same format. So I appreciate, Liz, that framing very much. Jane and Rajani, do you have any other sort of thoughts as you're hearing Liz's comments?
Yeah, I am agree with Liz because this time something should be added, and we can promote and we can showcase like new opportunity and promote cultural art council even at the same time. we can add on some kind of event or music or anything
Mhm.
kind of that. Yeah, some activities for kids like coloring or anything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you came last year.
Yeah.
Right, it was your first exposure to us, but did you know anything about the Arts Council before you came?
No, not really. That time I was just watching, and they all are speaking about what they did and how they are. Yeah, only that thing, nothing different. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Right, yeah.
something should be there if someone is going there and they don't know about Cultural Art Council, so they should know actually. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
I agree.
And even we can promote on social media and make flyer and print it out and put it at library and other
Mhm.
maybe school or somewhere else. Yeah.
I think some
That
kind
sounds
of an
great.
activity is a draw too.
I rather like the idea if we can use the library where you could do something that could go either indoors or outdoors
Mhm.
so that we could actually have an event outdoors if we have one of those absolutely rare and wonderful
Yeah,
moments that it's we could be outdoors, we could enjoy it, and it would be a real event, but it would also we could also do it at the library in case it was more of the usual weather.
yeah, yeah, that's a nice thought. Um,
What about new building, art building? We can
yeah,
use them too here.
that would
Uh,
be cool. Do we have
That's
any idea when
actually
that's
really
yeah,
a
opening?
good idea.
we
Is
can do there.
is it soon? Like, is it supposed to be open in this spring? I don't.
I think that is going to open in March. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know date, but I think so. I read somewhere.
that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how organized they are. I know that Catherine was talking to me a lot about it for a while, and then she's just sort of gone a little quiet. So I don't know what that means. I know Michael can be a little bit unpredictable, shall we say? And so, I really don't know. Also, there's a question of if that I'm not quite sure how that building is going to be used. I do know that the goal is to make it profitable, which means that, for example, if we were to have our meetings there, we would then be having to pay for it. It would not be free. And the same thing is if we had an event there, it probably would be have to go on the budget.
All
I
right.
doubt it's going to just be opened up for free for us.
Since we have to start planning this and getting the date out and everything soon, maybe this isn't the year. Like, we might not have enough time.
I agree.
Maybe we do the library or the community house, and then or probably the library. We do the library, and then we would be in a totally. They would be fully up and functioning by next year.
Right. Well, at least we know where we're standing and it's not something we don't want to set something up and then find out it's not going to happen at the last minute because they're not ready or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds kind of stressful. Um, okay.
So my not to be a stickler here, but I think that someone needs to lead this planning process for the event. Who wants to be the sort of thought leader, so to speak, organizing and planning the event? So it would be responsible for doing some market research on the best date, selecting the date, coming back to this group in March with sort of a proposal, if you will, for the reception.
And we want to do this when? End of.
So my suggestion would be that we, it comes back to objectives for the event. So,
Mhm.
um, you know, the way I like to think of these things is we're not just doing an event to do an event. So yes, we're doing like a grant reception, but the other objectives are to amplify awareness around what the council does, serve the different audiences that we are accountable to, etc. So, when you think of the flow of the year, there are naturally some times in which you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck in terms of the ROI on the time invested into planning something like this. It'll likely be at the tail end of the school year. Summer's not good because people are all over the place. Or end of August when people are coming back, getting into the school flow. If you do it in May or June, it's going to be more looking backward, but also looking forward, giving people a heads up of when the next grant committee or grant cycle begins. If we do it end of August, it'll be closer to when we kick off the grant cycle, which could also be a benefit. But, that's my sense in terms of logical times of year in which to have it.
Okay.
There are other business opportunities we could consider. I don't know enough about these organizations, but if I recall correctly, there's Wednesday nights starting in May or June. There are food truck nights hosted by the Rotary. So if they're this is probably not for this year, but I wonder if there in the future could be a co-sponsorship opportunity where the council and the Rotary host something and we couple it with, so I think there needs to be some strategic thought here, and because we don't have the amount of resources to put something
I think the only problem with asking one of the four of us to step up and lead is that none of us have done it before. And so it sounds very ambitious and of course, Nicole and Catherine aren't here today either, but I did not get involved at all in the planning in the past. I mean, I don't even think I brought brownies. So it's it's a little daunting.
Yeah, I think I get that. I don't think, and maybe it's just the way I'm talking about it, it doesn't need to be daunting. Ultimately what we're looking for is a practical date, some programming for the event, and some objectives that we're trying to meet.
Well, what do you guys think about a Sunday afternoon and after Mother's Day, but before Memorial Day? So middle of May, a Sunday. Oh, library's closed. Library's closed.
Yeah, I think Sundays are really hard for families. I know for our household, that's when we're resetting for the week, it's just not a good.
Saturdays?
Well, Saturday's gonna be tough because we're gonna interfere with youth soccer and youth lacrosse and all that stuff.
Yeah. I think Friday.
Really? You think we do well on a Friday? Okay.
Friday has nothing. I think no soccer, no basketball.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Except for people who are working, if it's during the day.
Yeah. I don't mean to be a negative, a stickler for stuff like this, but I have a lot of experience doing this type of event. And I really think it depends on, the target audience, what are the strategic objectives. And I think we just need to come up with and be in consensus as a committee over in the short term for this year, what are our 3 strategic objectives, and then align the event to that, keeping in mind our budget. I think long term, we can start to think a little bit more with a growth mindset of, what are things that we can do to really make this a big event. But if we bring this back to the original sort of discussion, which to Liz's point was celebrating our grant recipient and building some awareness around our programming, we can do that with a smaller scale event. But I think someone needs to lead this. I'm not going to take it on because I have enough committee work sort of assigned to me at the present moment. I think we need to spread it around a little bit.
No, that's true.
So if we don't want to make a decision right now, we can put a pin in it and come back to it in March.
Is it too late?
No, my suggestion would be like, I'll put the press release out before then.
Okay.
And we just won't include the grant reception date. But I think the committee, as a committee, we need to make sure that everyone has a role and that people feel comfortable sort of raising their hand and saying, yes, I'll take this on. And it doesn't need to be a major lift. But I think, my expectation would be for that person to just take on the planning.
Mhm.
And perhaps it might help if all 6 of us were here to talk about it and
Yeah, I agree.
see what's going on. I mean, I would love to do this, but I'm still trying to figure out what streets go where. I know so little about Southborough and how everything works or where to go to get anything. I feel like
Yeah.
I've just gotten here a couple of months ago. And at this point,
Yeah.
what's going on physically with me, my days are filled with doctor's appointments. So it's just getting everything done is a kind of overwhelming. So I would love to. I wish I could, just because it would be lots of noise in my life and a chance to kind of get out of the rut. But until I feel that you can trust me and I can come through, I don't want to volunteer for something that I may not be able to do.
Yeah, I understand that. Um,
So why don't we put a pin in it, and that can be an action. But between now and the next meeting, I think, folks need to give some thought into who wants to take this on. And this should not be a huge time lift. It's really doing some basic market research on a date, making sure we're not conflicting with other town events, stuff like that. Assessing venue availability, and then coming up with a strategy to at least invite the grant recipients at minimum, and at maximum, if we want to involve other audiences, how are we going to accomplish that? So it's, I don't see the planning as taking more than, 4 to 5 admin hours over the next couple months.
Okay. Well, I'll circulate the minutes, and I think we can, when the 6 of us are together, kind of figure that out, or maybe 2 people can take it on together. I think this does speak, though, to one of our other objectives. Is like I mentioned this before. The state allows for upwards of 20 people on the committee. I think we should look at extending our committee to delegate the responsibilities. It's just not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and that could even be an objective of the event.
Yeah, I think it would be a great objective of the event to use it as a recruiting tool as well.
Totally agree. So that sounds great.
Okay. All right, let's confirm the next meeting date. I've got March, I think that was the 18th, at 7. Does that still sound okay for you all?
Yeah. Do we want to do in person or virtual?
I vote in person. What do you guys think? Should we get out of the virtual pattern and do in person for a change?
That's fine.
Okay. I will reserve the senior center, hopefully. I'll put that request in for, do you guys want 6-7 or 6:30?
So it depends on, are we doing the open office hours before or after?
We could do them 6:30 to 7.
Okay. Could folks get here at 6:30 or?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wait,
Okay.
how are we going to know that we're doing them?
We can include it in the press release, but I think that we can just post it on our website more simply. I don't think there needs to be.
Yeah, so are you thinking when you get emails directly from people that you'll just respond and politely ask them to
Yeah,
come to the meeting?
so right now I have an auto reply set up that has some basic council administration directions for people to follow, and I'm going to add it onto that.
Okay.
So I think if everyone could do that, I could even send out a basic template for people to use on your email. We can just have people be aware of that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Um, um, okay. That sounds great. Well, then, if there's nothing else, I will.
Let's just run through the agenda for the next meeting, Liz, if that's okay.
Okay,
Make sure we're,
sure. So, first we're gonna have open. I'm gonna put open office hours as the first agenda item.
Okay.
The review the minutes from today's meeting, and then I think we just basically we need to do the planning for the grant reception. Is there anything else that we need to cover next time? Maybe, do you guys want to give an update on reimbursements?
yeah, I think if we could just have some standing agenda items, so we can do a chair report, treasurer report. So it'll be like minute approval, chair report, where we can update on business items that have taken place that we might not be aware of right now. Treasurer report, which will include any financials. And then the subject, like the main focus of the meeting, can be the grant reception. And then if we could allocate 10 minutes at the end for the artist spotlight. So I'll invite one of the grantees that we declined. And that way we can just kind of like have a standard flow.
Well, can't we get that person to come during the open office hours? Or can't we put all that in the same
So,
office hours?
well, I
is
guess maybe
the
we're not on the
same?
same page about, so I think there are two, from my perspective, there are two different things and two different goals. So the open office hours is, the objective for that is for people who are sort of like looking for council answers, maybe want to like have a conversation about something really general. I've gotten a lot of emails for things like, you know, starting a partnership, stuff like that, where it's a little fuzzy. What I would like to do instead of being, because I think it's important for us as a committee to be responsive to these folks, these stakeholders. And so my solution to that is to have time allocated where they can actually come and talk to us rather than one council member being accountable to like setting up an individual meeting with them or, you know, turning them down because they might have a good idea. We just need to hear it. You know, the select board as a practice, they do stuff like that too. So I think it's a good just general practice to have as a functional committee. The other objective is separate. So having an artist spotlight that's focused more on people that have submitted a grant that we thought was actually, it had some viable components, but it didn't hit all of our targets.
I see.
They
Okay.
may or may not want to apply in the future. So that's a bit more of a closed and more like a specific set of questions, which is, you know, what are you trying to accomplish? How can we help you? And like hearing a little bit more from them about like what their planning looks like over the next 12 months or so.
Okay, so if we're gonna get back to, that makes sense, thanks. If we're gonna get back to meeting in person, then the artist spotlight really should be at the beginning, because if we're gonna ask someone to come.
Okay, so it'll be like at 7, then we move into our formal
So we do our
agenda.
meeting.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And so then are we thinking then of backing all our meetings up technically on paper to be 6:30, so that office hours go 6:30 to 7?
And again, I don't know open meeting law enough, like well enough to say like that has to be, like, I don't think all of us need to be there, but I think 2 of us should be there or 1, you know.
I think we all need to be there because I think it's in violation. We're talking about committee related information when we don't have a quorum and it's not, it wouldn't be public. So I think it has to be part of the
Okay.
meeting.
So if we are going to make that change, then maybe we hold on doing it in March. We don't make that change. I think Nicole and Catherine also need to weigh in on the timing. Or do we just make a decision? And because I just don't know scheduling wise if that's even viable for.
Well, both of these are see, I now that I think through the logistics, both of these are kind of challenging if we're going back to in-person meetings. That's all.
Yeah, I was thinking that same
That's the
thing.
only problem, is it?
It's much more flexible if you're just doing it online and people can come in on the Zoom, which would, unless you want to actually have scheduled the hours before, say we do it at 6:30 and make sure, and at last minute say, well, nobody is coming, so we're going to start at 7. Because if we all get there and no one has actually, people are not going to just drop in, I don't think. So they would probably make an appointment to come, but then are we all going to just go there and sort of, well,
Right.
nobody.
Yeah, and I don't want to be in the business of making one-on-one appointments. Do you know what I mean? I think that's too big of a lift with the amount of
Right.
inquiries we get. So this is trying to mitigate that. So maybe what that means is we stick with online.
I think our conversations flow more. I think in person fosters better conversations, but we don't have to do it we don't have to do every meeting that way. But
So how about we think about the office hours?
okay, why don't we do,
And before
yeah.
we operationalize that, because it
Yeah.
sounds like, you know, we need to think it through a bit more. So if we could just add that also to the agenda list.
Yeah, that's, why don't we do that with both the office hours and the artist spotlight for next meeting? And give us a chance to discuss both as a group. Unless you guys want to put the artist spotlight as the first agenda item for the meeting, the next meeting at 6:30.
Yeah, my sense is the main, and Jane and Rajani chime in here and feel free to disagree with me, but my sense is that the main piece that really we need to hash out is the office hours. And then the second is sort of related, which is, do we want to have an artist spotlight as a standing meeting item? And then you know, I did invite a few folks that we had declined to come to future meetings. And so for the next one, if we could just put a tentative hold, and I'm happy to reach out to those to see if one of them can come, but we don't need to make a decision right now on whether or not it's a standing meeting item, if that makes sense.
I'll put it on for next time. No problem. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, that sounds good.
Good.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so I have the agenda set up. It's mostly discussing the grant reception planning. I'm going to put it down for 6:30 at the senior center. I'll reserve the spot, and I will circulate these minutes to the town tomorrow.
Oh, one question. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
nitpicking, but why are
No.
we moving it to 6:30 if we're not doing?
Oh, we're not. We're sticking with 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. We're not. Okay. I'll circulate these. If any of you have a chance to talk to Nicole or Catherine, you can nudge them towards the minutes and they can, if they have any questions. Okay. Anything else? You guys have any?
No,
No?
that's nice to see everybody.
All right. Well,
It's
I
low
will call.
70s here in California. So I'm
Oh,
sending
how nice.
warmth your way.
I will adjourn the meeting at 7:49 and look forward to seeing all of you in person in a few weeks. That will be nice. It's been a long time. I think that will be really nice.
Yeah.
Terrific. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Thanks.
See you later.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.